Our feature presentation this week is the type of movie that they really don't make anymore. A lot of times on the show, we'll throw around terms like exploitation, grimy, and grindhouse, giallo. These are all things that like people have asked me, what are you talking about? Like,
Oh, sure.
do you mean like is that really gross horror? Is that mean really? So one time someone asked me if we were talking about porn, like old porn. Uh, no, so exploitation movies they're a little hard to explain because they are very white. It's a
They
wide
dabble in all of it.
spectrum. Yeah, it's a little bit of everything from Lady Snowblood to Shark Attack movies. So it could be anything. But Mad Heidi is the story about a girl from the Swiss Alps who gets kidnapped by the fascist Switzerland government and has to fight for justice and revenge. This is an exploitation movie. Like, I mean,
Oh,
from the Swissploitation Paramount Pictures parody to the crazy shootout at the end. This is a now there's I mean, Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino are great examples of mainstream filmmakers who have used like exploitation and grindhouse to have very successful careers. But there's lots of exploitation that bleeds into cinema. But this movie, it absolutely leans into like 70s grimy grindhouse exploitation movies, and
yeah.
it makes no bones about it. It's unapologetic, and you don't see yeah, there's violent movies and there's sexy movies and there's whatever, but you don't really see movies like Mad Heidi anymore.
No, you don't, and it's a shame because I feel well, the fun thing about a movie like this is it just lets you go nuts, right?
Yeah,
Let's take a concept and push it to the max. Call it extreme, whatever you want to. But I think it makes for just a really engaging experience to be so off the wall. It's nice to like not really know what's coming around the corner, and hey, this movie is rife with cliches
oh
and
yeah.
like 80s montages and like all sorts of stuff like that. And I was reasonably, I thought they did a pretty good job most of the time with it. I will say the beginning maybe drags just a touch, like the pacing right there at the top of the movie. While yeah, it's pretty intense and stuff. Like once you kind of get into their prison system, I thought things kind of slowed down a little bit. But overall, I thought this was just like really really funly done and like kind of giving you something new around like every corner.
It's with exploitation. I think one of the reasons that I find it hard to explain because they're the type of movies, like we mentioned Truck Stop Women earlier. It's kind of movie you just turn off your brain,
Yeah.
and they're just visceral. You're just watching it. What you see is what you get, and there's nudity, there's blood, there's
Oh,
sex, and there's violence. Mad Heidi, though, one thing that separates it from exploitation is there's not like a raunchy ass sex scene in it.
no.
Uh, um, you just but there's a layer, and it's very light, it's very lightly dusted. There's a little bit of topicality to it.
Yeah.
Like in this one, there's a little bit of like, the government being too involved, a little bit of like sexism, misogyny, a little bit of
Oh,
racism.
yeah.
Like it's just very, but that's
But
not
like in the
really what,
spirit of like Mel Brooks.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of like it's there, but you're really here to see somebody get ripped in half. Like, and spoiler warning, we're going to talk about some things that happen here. We won't ruin anyone's enjoyment of it, though. One of the things that stood about this movie, and I don't think you can really say this about movies nowadays, is it like you just don't get it anymore. So, Alice Lucy, who plays Heidi, she's really sexy. She has like a sex appeal to her that they were unafraid to show off back in the day. And I don't want to be one of those like cancel culture type, but you just don't have sexy characters anymore. There's lots of good looking people out there,
Yeah.
and she's not flaunting anything at all. I mean, there's one nude scene with her, I think, but it's not about. There's just something about her overall character. Maybe it is her badassness. I don't know. I think she's a great hero, but I think maybe it's the garter belts. I don't know, but there's a sex appeal to Heidi that it's not a make or break thing, but it's very noticeable and very much appreciated.
Yeah, totally. No, she's wearing like the sexiest leader hose in there ever was. That's for sure. But yeah, no, there's a this movie does an interesting thing with like sex appeal. Like there's let me put it, there's kind of like a little something for everyone.
There
If that
is.
if that makes sense. Like there, and I don't think it's ever, like a lot of old exploitation from like the 70s and 80s. um there's like a level of like discomfort like nowadays. Like
Yeah.
it is exploitative, and they're like literally just showing a naked woman like laying on a bed for an extended period of time with no context to anything. Like that's not present here, like,
Well, it kind of is actually with that one character.
well, okay,
Yeah, I mean,
but
I
like,
personally, I think it's a joke, and
but that's
maybe
like
some
the,
people
like I
don't.
said, like the Mel Brooks thing. Like that's like
True, true.
literally like the Mel Brooks, like in Blazing Saddles, he's like the mayor has got like this buxom babe with him the whole time.
Gotcha. Or an airplane, they have just the random scene, just
Yeah,
the booth, just because every movie was doing it at the time, so they had to
totally,
do it.
totally, totally. And like that plays to like the homage, I guess, to like what all this
Right.
stuff was. But your main characters, which in old exploitation would have been totally exploited for their bodies and all that kind of stuff,
Absolutely. You're right.
not present here. And I thought that was really cool. I thought that was like, yeah, let's get our cheap boob shot every now and again for
Yeah.
no reason at all. But let's also make these women badass. And I thought that was like a really cool combination of like, yeah, we can still have our grime and raunch, but we can also be like a little bit more respectful to our main characters, which I did. Like you said, there is like one minor nude scene, but like nothing outrageous. And yeah, she is sexy. She definitely has a sex appeal. And then like that, like you could like throw that with like what the character Casper Van Dien is playing, which is just like a cartoon, just like this.
He looked like a deflated porn star from the 70s.
You know what he looked? Yeah, he looked like a bad cosplay of M. Bison from Street Fighter. That's what he looked like to me.
He looked like he was like a bad Raul Julia.
Yeah, bad Raul Julia M. Bison. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. With an accent that totally comes in and out, which they actually mentioned numerous times.
Yeah, which is awesome. Like this movie
Yeah,
was very tongue in
very
cheek
aware.
with
Yeah.
it. They do this, and this movie when it doesn't dip into exploitation. You have this women in prison element, which, even including them being hosed down, which I haven't seen that in literally decades.
Yeah, I love a good woman
Getting hosed down. When's the last time you saw that? There's
Oh.
and I don't even know if we can say this anymore, but there's even a little bit of Nazi exploitation to this with the whole
Yeah,
Isla She Wolf of the SS going on here. Like
totally.
they were going in so and it's a lot, and it's one of those things where you're like, okay, like we get it. You're a spoof of an exploitation movie, and it's really getting kind of boring now. It's no spoof. Like this is an exploitation movie made in. So for those who have asked us, like, what do you mean by exploitation? What do you mean by Grammy?
Yeah.
This movie kind of is a good primer on all of that. And one of the things it does really well too is I mean, when you have a character named Goat Peter,
Go Peter was so awesome.
you're in for chances are you're gonna have some really strong characters in this. And yeah, Casper Van Dien, the accent notwithstanding, which like you said is brought up, there's some like really great characters in this movie.
Yeah, totally great characters. The kind of bully prisoner that is with Heidi is outstanding. Like I that actress stole the show every time, because you're just expecting something horrible, and you're right. Like there's a multiple shots of her dunking Heidi's head into a toilet. Like you get the idea that this happens literally every day.
Yeah, this is her
And like,
life.
yeah, like there's some like real good comedy here. Like I think that's like, we talk about horror comedies and stuff, and like a lot, and it's pretty rare that a movie kind of pulls it off to be that silly, especially in the exploitation realm, to not get like, okay guys, I get your fucking stupid joke, you've done it. This one stays pretty funny.
It
And
does.
I gotta give it kudos for that. That is so hard to do. Yeah, up until the very end of this movie, it
It's
had me laughing my ass off. So
it
good
does
on.
it does a really good job, and it's difficult too because
Yeah,
it has, like you said, the beginning a little slow compared to the
yeah,
rest of the movie. so there's not as many one liners, but then it makes up for it in
Oh
the
God.
final scene, from like the final like showdowns until the very end. It's almost like one liner after one liner after one,
Oh
and
yeah.
that can get very tiresome. But it works here. There's some really good stuff here. Like there's references to Scarface, stuff
Oh
about
yeah.
fried cheese. Like it's good. It really worked out. And then exploitation and action exploitation especially, like you can't talk about it without talking about the kills and the blood. And this one like starts off, kind of builds to them, but once the bloodshed comes, man, they have some really creative and fun scenes in this.
Yeah, it actually reminded me of our Santa movie where like
Oh
robotic
yeah, yeah,
Santa
the
is like killing
robotic Santa,
everybody.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it has smacks of that, and you just don't see halberds used enough in film
yeah. No,
to murder people, and there
that's
is
true.
so much of that in this movie. It's so great. There's I mean, there's like some katana foo, halberd foo, lots of good foos in this, and I thought that the violence level, um, they did it in a pretty kind of like clever way. Like there's violence throughout, but it's not
Yeah.
like over the top gratuitous, gory violence. They kind of saved that for the coup de grace, and I'm
Mhm.
glad they did because I thought it made it much more effective. To where you're like, oh shit, you're like, oh
Right.
fuck, I didn't, you kind of get those reactions, which I thought that was a good call.
Me too, because you get one. There's a scene involving Goat Peter early on where, and that's the first like big one, and I
I
had the
was
same
like,
reaction.
oh shit,
The reaction you just, because I wasn't expecting it,
yeah.
like at all. I was like, okay, this is an exploitation movie, and we'll see what they do with it. And they have the sepia tone or whatever, and you're like, okay, they're kind of leaning with, and then that happens, and you're like, whoa, like takes you back. It's funny. It's ridiculous.
That's so
It,
absurd. Yeah.
like should it just completely caught me off guard. Like, but just a really good scene. But then it doesn't happen again for a
For a
while.
good long time.
And then the next time it happens, you're like, oh
Oh
shit.
shit.
And then they're a little more consistent after that. But
Yeah.
because they didn't use them throughout the movie, you don't get tired of them, and you can appreciate each one. Um, they don't get more violent because the first one is really,
It's as violent as it
really,
gets. Yeah.
yeah, you're not going to get much more than that. But they pepper in like the jokes with it. There's different scenarios and stuff, and just creative ways of doing it. The movie stays, it never gets old, never gets stale. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
wear out its welcome. Very,
Exactly.
very,
Yeah.
very good stuff. The ending, it does open itself up for a sequel. So would you see more adventures of Heidi and Carla? I guess she might
Highly
play a part.
Carly. Yeah. Yeah. So here's the thing. I actually think this is like a really rad avenging kind of character. Like
Mhm.
I think it's cool. I think Heidi's an awesome character.
Yeah,
She's got like this great it's just like the bride. There's like like
totally.
yeah, I mean and like yeah, do we want more bride? Yeah, we would love more of the bride.
Mhm.
I definitely want more Heidi and Carla. Yeah, I would totally do it.
I think they have the start of something really special here. I think like back in a different time when we weren't being like inundated with movies and there wasn't so many streaming channels. I think this could be a franchise. Like
Yeah,
it could be, it might be Puppet Master straight to video type franchise. But I think, or like what is it, the Fallen Angel series
sure,
or whatever.
sure.
Like no, but Heidi and Alice Lucy in particular, she has a good charisma about her. She's
She
really
does.
cool action star. I think that, and if the Heidi franchise, if it doesn't work out, I really think that she should look into the action field because I think she can really, really make a name for herself. I think she could have a good career doing it.
Totally.
But my preference would be to see more of these Heidi movies because
Yeah.
I think the character is amazing. I think that the setting is really cool. Like they can
Yeah.
really do something with it. But it's the type of character that's like ready made for comics and novels. You could make video games out of this. Like I think they got something here. I don't know what they are going to do with it, but they have something pretty special here, I think.
I completely agree with you. And I actually think it would be fun to kind of just bring Casper Van Dien kind of back as the bad guy like every time. Like you put him in like South America or like I don't know. So you could have him doing stupid accents and yucking it up. and kind of being the perpetual bad guy, even though he's a different character, just kind of like everybody's just kind of in on the joke. I thought a lot about it because they do. I mean, they obviously the end is, it kind of very much sets it up. And yeah, it got my mind spinning, and I would love more of this stuff. She has, like you said, she's got like action charisma. And I could see her parlaying this into like actual, like real deal action movies. But yeah, like you said, yeah, let's keep it real fucking goofy.